What's up, ninja marketers? One of the most common questions that I get is how to get a page indexed. We've got this new page that we've done. We are trying to get it indexed for either our own site or a client site, and we can't figure out if Google can even find it. One thing we need to understand is that all of the results in Google are indexed, but not all indexed pages are in the results. I'm going to repeat that. All the pages in the results are indexed, but not all of Google's pages that are indexed are in results. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to break this down into a 10-step process, and we're going to find out if you are indexed currently, if you are ranking, and if not, how to get you there. Let's take a look. First, we need to know if we are currently indexed or not. You probably already know the answer to this if you're watching this video or looking at this tutorial, but here's how we're going to do it. We're going to use Google's site operators. They are extremely helpful. So the one that we're going to use is site. And what that means is you're going to go to a URL bar and type in site : whatever your HTTP or HTTPS, hopefully it's an S, / whatever your entire URL is. And that is going to tell you whether or not the page is indexed, because when you search for that, you're either going to see something like this where it has the result for that URL. That means this page is indexed. Or you're going to see something like this where I searched for a page that I know doesn't exist, and you're going to see that it didn't match any documents. That means that it is not indexed, which, that's all well and good, but how do we get it to index? That's why we're all here. And we're going to break it down into a 10-step process. First step, we need to check, are we in the sandbox? The Google sandbox basically might be blocking everything. Second, can our page be crawled? We're going to do some checking on that. Third, we're going to request Google index our new page. Fourth, we're going to add it to a sitemap and submit or resubmit that sitemap to Google. Fifth, we're going to perform some Google tests, which we're going to make it extremely easy. We built a tool. It's like cheat mode. Next, we're going to add our new page to some Google properties. And we're going to do it our way, which is slightly different than a lot of other people's. We're going to drive some social signals. We're going to drive some traffic to it. We've got some life hacks for that to make it easier on you. We're going to link to it. Both internal and external linking strategies will be used. And then we're going to cover some 301, 302, 307 redirects. It's an advanced technique. So with that, that's our 10-step checklist. Let's get started on that first step. The first thing we need to understand is our site in the sandbox? The sandbox is basically for new sites. It's where Google is still trying to understand your level of credibility or authority on whatever topic for which you are trying to rank. And so if you are in the sandbox, your site may be crawled, it may be indexed, but none of your pages will be showing up in the search results because you're in the sandbox. We need to figure that out. First, how are we going to do it? We're going to check to see if our pages are indexed using the site operators that we've already talked about. And then we're going to take a look at, do any of our pages actually rank for anything? How do we know that? Well, we're going to dive right into that. And then if we're not ranking for anything, we need to get out of the sandbox, which is something that will be covered in a different tutorial. It's outside of the scope of today, but hint, we do use a lot of very similar strategies for this. So first things first, we're going to use that operator, and we're just going to do our primary website. You see that I've done site : https://ninjamarketing.solutions, and it will tell me how many pages that I have indexed. If I've got 85 pages that are indexed, that's fantastic. That means that a lot of my tutorials are indexed. So are any of them ranking? Are any of the pages on your website ranking? We need to find out. So to find out, we're going to need a few things. We're going to need Google Search Console, and it's got to be linked with Google Analytics. We've got a different tutorial we'll link to on that. And then inside of our Google Analytics, we're going to go to, under Acquisition, under the Search Console tab, we're going to go to Queries. And when we go to Queries, here's what we're looking for. So we've gone Acquisition, Search Console, Queries, and we've got all these lists of different things that we're ranking for. We want to go over here to this last column of average position, and we want to sort it where everything goes from high to low. That tells us, are we ranking for anything? So on this one, we're ranking for like SEO company, we're ranking number 1. For digital marketing agency, we're ranking number 2. So that tells us that our pages are actually ranking, which means we are definitely not in the sandbox. And congratulations, if we are not in the sandbox, that means that we can continue on to the next step. Let's take a look at that one. The next thing we need to understand is whether or not our page can be crawled. See, Google releases a bot which crawls your page or your site, and when it crawls it, we just call it spidering the site. That's the web. It's going through each individual link. Well, it might run across a page that it can't read for whatever reason, and some of those reasons might be that it's blocked by your robots.txt file. We're not going to dive too far into that, but here's an example. So if we went to whatever our site is /robots.txt, you'll see that there are some, like for instance, disallow anything that is in the WP admin directory. That's because you don't want any of your administrator folders or files getting indexed by Google. So you are telling Google, do not follow into the WP admin folder. It's got some sitemaps, some other information, but you might see numerous folders that are allowed or not allowed in the disallow folder. So if you are not being able to be crawled because you're being blocked by robots.txt, you need to fix that. Next, we need to look at our user permissions correct. And to do that, we're going to take a look at some examples. We're going to look at two different commonly used content management systems. The first one is WordPress. And so in WordPress, I have brought up a post or a page, and over here I can see the status and visibility of it. And if I click on public, I can set it to private or password protected. You might also note that in WordPress you can put posts or pages into draft mode. You want to make sure that they are, one, published, and two, that they are publicly visible, because for instance, if this was password protected, then Google can't read it because it doesn't have the password, right? So that's WordPress. You want to make sure that it's set to published, and you want to make sure that the visibility is set to public. This is one in Joomla. This is a menu item where the access level is set to registered. That means Google cannot read it because it's not registered on your site. When it tries to land on your site, it will find that it can no longer read it. So if you are allowing it in robots.txt and you've got your public settings done correctly to where your user access level is public and it is set to published, you should be good to go. Congratulations, we can be crawled. Let's move on to the next step. The next thing we want to do is inside of Google Search Console, and we want to actually request Google to index our page. So let's get logged into the Google Search Console, and once you're in there, you will see at the very top there's an Inspect Any URL bar right there. You can also click on this URL inspection and it'll automatically move your cursor there. Type in whatever the URL is that you want and click Enter. When you do that, it will tell you whether or not your page has been indexed. And so, for instance, URL is not on Google. I can click where it says Request Indexing. When you do that, it'll take a few minutes, but it will eventually say Indexing Requested. And now you can bet that in the next day, couple of days, Google will actually go through and index that page, or at least they will crawl it. Now, if it's still being blocked by robots.txt or your visibility settings aren't done correctly, it's not going to be able to index it regardless. However, if you've taken care of those steps from the earlier steps, then you're going to be good to go. You have requested it to be indexed. Let's take a look at the next thing we can do. Next, we want to make sure that our new page that we're trying to get indexed is added to a sitemap. And the way that you do this on your site may vary, but in WordPress, you might be using an all-in-one SEO extension, or you might be using Yoast or something like that. And if so, you're going to have an area right here that says sitemaps where you can go and you can generate it. It will crawl your site for you and generate a sitemap. Generally, it will create a new file called sitemap.xml. And assuming that it does that, we want to go to that in a browser, find our page that we're trying to get indexed, and click it. Make sure that it is actually working correctly on your sitemap. Assuming that it is working on your sitemap, we're going to go back into Google Search Console, and we're either going to submit or resubmit our sitemap. Assuming you already have one that has been submitted in the past, what we want to do is replace it. What we're going to do is go to Search Console. Under Index, we're going to look at Sitemaps. If I click right here on this sitemap, it will take me to a view where I can then click on these three little dots and I can remove the sitemap. Once I have removed it, then I can go back in and I can just add a new sitemap by entering it right here, clicking Submit. It will resubmit the sitemap into Google and Google will re-index it. Let's take a look at what's next. In addition to asking Google to index our page by actually requesting it, and in addition to adding it to a sitemap, you can also request that Google do a few other tests on your page, and you can be sure that in order to perform these tests, it at least has to crawl the page. It can't force it to be indexed, but it can certainly help speed it up. So we're going to use some of Google's testing tools. And again, in order to test it, Google obviously has to crawl it. So which ones are we going to use? Well, we're going to use the mobile friendly testing tool, the Google page speed test, the rich snippets testing tool, and then a technical SEO audit by Google's Lighthouse. Don't worry, instead of you having to do all of these manually, we've created one simple tool. It's going to make it super easy for you to do. Check out exactly how to use it right now. Because we don't want you to have to figure out a bunch of different places to go for us to perform the Google tests that are going to help us get indexed, I decided to make you a really easy tool. Let's pretend that this Chamber of Commerce wanted to add this member benefits page to Google's index. What they can do is click here, hit submit. This is one of the many steps that we've outlined in our tutorial, but now you've got these links. In order for Google to understand if your page is mobile friendly or not, or the page speed of it, or if it's eligible for rich snippets, or everything about its performance and SEO scores, it has to crawl the page. The first step to getting a page indexed is getting it crawled. So what I'm going to do is just click these links in order that they come in below. By the way, these are going to open up in a new window, so this couldn't be easier. You just click it. It will automatically start the test for you. Okay? Let that test finish. Once it finishes, you're going to go back to it, click the next test. It will automatically start running the test for you. Once that test finishes, come back here. It will automatically start the test for you. Once that test finished, click the last one. This one takes the longest time because it's looking at the most stuff. But what we have just done is we have forced Google to crawl our new page that we've just entered 4 different times using Google's own tools. It's a fantastic way. It's one of the many steps that we use to make sure that we get a page indexed as efficiently and effectively as possible. Up to this point, everything we've done to try to get our new page indexed has been pretty standard stuff. This is where we start to get creative and it gets a lot more fun. So we're going to start with some of the more average and standard uses of the Google properties, and we're going to work our way into something more advanced. Let's take a look at which Google properties we're going to start using. First off, we're going to create a GMB post, or a Google Business Profile post now as they're called. You'll still hear me call it GMB. And we're going to create a call to action with our link. Here's what it might look like. In our Google Business Profile, we click on our posts and we start creating a new post. We'll write our entire status. It might be a section of that article you're trying to rank. And then down here, we're going to add a call to action. I like to use the Learn More button if it's an informational article. And when you click Learn More, you're going to put in whatever the URL is to your new page, and you're going to publish it. That's going to create you a GMB link. It's a post with a link to your new article that you're trying to get indexed. I've found that this oftentimes, along with requesting it to be indexed, is enough to get the page indexed. But let's take a look at some other things that we like to do. Next, we want to do a YouTube video with a call to action link. The call to action link is one of those that pops up on the screen. If you're watching this on video, you're going to see me do it somewhere over here near my head, where there will be a button where if you click on it, it will actually take you out to the article that I'm trying to get indexed. In this case, it'll be this new tutorial. You also want to add that link in the description. Yes, I understand that it is a no-follow link, but understand this, it is still going to be crawled by Google. In fact, it gets indexed relatively quickly because YouTube is a Google property. Next, we want to create a link from our Google site. The way you can do this is in your Google Business Profile Manager, you're going to go to Website, and then you're going to click on the Edit Text area. In the summary of the body, you can add in whatever your new text is, perhaps the title of your new article as an example, and click Link. When you click Link, you'll put in the URL to your new page that you're trying to get indexed and click OK. That's going to add a link to your Google Business site, assuming your Google Business site is published. So now that we've got a link from our Google Business site, let's start getting a little more unconventional. We're going to start linking from Google Docs and Slides. The way you can do this is pretty straightforward. You probably are very familiar with how to use a Google Doc, and then I just put the URL right there in it, and then this might be some text from the actual Google Doc. But here's where it gets a little bit trickier. Click on File, and then you're going to see down here this Publish to the Web. When you click that Publish to the Web, it makes it public. It makes it to where it can be indexed and crawled. If you're using Google Slides, it's the exact same area. You click on File, and you publish it to the web. That will make it to where it can be indexed. Now, one more thing to note. If you click on this Share button up at the top right, there will be a button that says Share, and it'll pop up, and that's where you can set your restrictions. You're probably already familiar with that. And you can copy the link. That's where we're going to get creative with it, because sometimes it's enough for these Google properties like a Google Doc or a Google Slide to go ahead and get the link indexed. But if it's not, we can get a little more aggressive and combine some of these strategies. Let's take a look at how we do that. We're going to interlink some of these Google properties. Understand this, Google loves Google, so let's stroke that ego as much as we can. And I'm going to give you a hypothetical example, but you can take this in any direction you want to. I'm just going to give you one overview. Let's say that we were going to create a new GMB post, but instead of us linking it directly to our new page, maybe we've already done that, and this is a different GMB post. Maybe 3 days later it's still not indexed, so we want to make it a little more aggressive. What I might do is I might link this GMB post to the publicly available Google Doc that I had done. So my Google Doc has my new page, and I link to it straight from my GMB post that I've just created, a different GMB post than the original one where I actually linked my true URL. So now I've got a GMB post pointing to my Google Doc that also is linking to my page I'm trying to get indexed by going through that share URL. But let's go one step further. Now that we've got that GMB posted, maybe I create a Google slideshow, and in my Google slide that's publicly available, I create a link to that GMB post that's linking to the Google Doc. How do I do that? Well, if you go look at the GMB post that you created that had that link to the Google Doc, or maybe you're going to link to the one that actually links directly to the page. Totally up to you. This is what I mean when I say you can get creative. You go to the GMB post, and you click down here where it's got this little share icon. And when you do that, it's going to give you a URL. Copy that URL and now put that in your Google Slide or in another, another Google Doc. And now you're interlinking all of these assets. Does that make sense? I hope it does, where you're actually interlinking one Google property to another Google property to help drive Google to that URL that you're trying to get indexed as many times as possible. It's a little unconventional, but I found it to be highly effective. The next tactic that we want to use in order to get this page indexed is to drive social signals to it. Understanding that social signals or links from social sites are going to be no-follow links, that doesn't mean they're not important, because it is natural for a business to have links that are both follow and no-follow links. But the social signals that come along with the traffic are very important, and Google will look to that for validation and help to drive this page into the index. So what we're going to do is we're going to manipulate that. You probably already have places where you know if you share a link it'll get some clicks, but I want to show you some ways that you can actually improve on that as well. Just like in the SERPs, we can adjust our title tag, our meta description, things like that, and so I can help drive up my click-through ratio. You can use open graph tags and Twitter cards to be able to do that. So here's what I wanted to use as an example. Basically, you can use what's now the meta for developers, but it is the Facebook debugging tool is what I know it as. You go to developers.facebook.com/tools/debug. I'll leave a link to that below in this tutorial. And what you do is you put in the URL, and the URL will pull in this preview. We've got an entire tutorial on how to modify this. I'll drop that here below. So this isn't as much on how to do it, but this is a tactic on what to do when you're doing it. So what I'm going to do is show you a way that I would do this. Today, I would go drop this link. Let's say that I had picked out 10 different places, 10 different groups, or pages that I have access to, or comment sections that I drop tutorials in, whatever it's going to be. I've got, call it 10 different places that I'm going to post this in order to help drive those social signals. Well, today I'm going to drive this, the year and then how to get a web page indexed by Google. Okay. And then tomorrow what I'm going to do is I'm going to go modify these open graph tags. Are you missing this crucial SEO step? And I'm going to change my image. So let's say I'm going to change it to that. And then I'm going to say, if you do this incorrectly, your SEO efforts are in vain. Okay? Now I'm going to save that page. Now if I were to go back to the debugger and tell it to scrape again, it's going to find that has changed. Why am I doing that? Well, I'm doing it because one, I can split test. So I can see which combination of the image, the title, and the description, which one is performing the best and getting the most clicks. Another thing I can do is I can use the same content, the same link, but make it look like it's different articles. So it's going to help drive my clicks up. And so this will definitely help get it to where people are, one, clicking on it, two, liking it, sharing it, sending it as a private message, and commenting on it. Those are all things that you can do as a social signal that will help get it indexed. And then also, don't forget to combine strategies. Remember, we talked about making a GMB post that the call to action links to this page we're trying to get indexed. Be sure to share that GMB post into your social media as well, because the more it gets clicked on, the more traffic is going to flow through to this new page. All of it works together, and it's very helpful for getting the page indexed. I hope that helps. Let's take a look at the next tactic. The next thing we want to do is link to our new page. We're going to create some internal and external links. Let's find some opportunities for it. So first, we're going to focus on internal links because that's the lowest hanging fruit that we can control. We want to find an existing page on our site, one that's already indexed, and ideally one that is contextually relevant to the new page that we're trying to rank. It's even better, it's a bonus, if it's already driving some kind of traffic from either search or from social, wherever it's getting the traffic from. So as an example, let's take a look at, this is a different tutorial that I had done about how to tell if a GMB listing was already claimed. And it ranks number 2 on Google overall. So this would be a potential page where if I was adding a new tutorial, I might employ this tactic. What I would do is I would go actually change this page to include a link to the new page that I was trying to get indexed. Does that make sense? So I'm going to create an internal link from this page to a new page that I'm trying to get indexed. Then I'm going to request re-indexing of this page, the high traffic page. So this how to tell if a GMB listing is already claimed, I've updated it. I've created a internal link to whatever the new page article is, and then I'm going to request re-indexing. And the way that I do that is by going into Search Console and typing into this URL bar the existing high traffic page. So how to tell if a GMB listing is claimed. It's going to say that it is on Google because obviously it's already ranking. So then we're going to request re-indexing of it. And when we request indexing, it will now go recrawl that page. And when it does, it'll pick up that internal link to our new page, which will hopefully help get it indexed. So that's a big play for us. The next thing we can do is create external links to it. And if you haven't watched our other tutorial on our backlinking strategy, definitely check that out. But what we want to do is potentially start to create contextually relevant backlinks to our new page that we're trying to get indexed. If you have the if triple T's or if this then that networks, then it automates this process a great deal. And so what you can do is you can point those if this then that, those are your tier 2 properties like your Web 20s and things like that. If you've got a bunch of Web 2.0s that are set up in a if triple T network, this is a really, really powerful tactic. So the content is generated by artificial intelligence. We like to use Article Forge. You can use Jarvis, whatever you want. And like Article Forge, for instance, has a spinning component to it where you can actually create a spun version of an article. So let's say that I was going to create a new page about getting indexed on Google, and then I was trying to actually get that indexed, pun intended here. Then what I could do is in Article Forge, I could get Article Forge to write an article about the indexing process in Google, and then I would just spin it multiple times. I would drop it out into my tier 2 networks. You can also use this content to post it as guest posts on local websites, again helping drive either contextually relevant or high authority, or ideally both, backlinks to your new page. If you are on a local site, then you would also be able to use anything that's geographically relevant as well. And look at your competitors' backlinks. In our backlink tutorial, we looked at Mangles, and this is a great way for you to go find out where your competitors are getting backlinks. If your new article or your new page is pertinent to something that your competitors are already getting backlinks for, then that's a great way to go generate some backlinks to your new page, which again will definitely help you get indexed. This next tactic is one of my favorites because it really helps to tie a bunch of the strategies together, and that is driving traffic to that new page that we're trying to get indexed. So let's take a look at how we can do that. First, we got to find some traffic opportunities. And I like using social media because there's a lot of people that are on it, and you probably already have an audience of people that you can push this information out to. So we need to figure out which platforms are driving the most traffic to. You may already know that, but if you don't, we can use Google Analytics to find that out. And so the way that works is you log into your Google Analytics, and over on the acquisition tab, if you click on social and then look at your network referrals, it will actually tell you where the most traffic is coming from. So the way you can do that is sort by sessions. And if you sort the high to low on sessions, then it will tell you, like for instance, 93% of my traffic for my site is coming from Facebook. That's great. So that obviously lends itself to some opportunity for me to run some Facebook ads or try to target my Facebook audience with my new post to drive some traffic to it to help it get indexed. But one thing that I wanted to show you is that there's some other opportunities in here. For instance, when I open up some of this content, I can see some other things that might be pertinent and relevant. For instance, LinkedIn is actually driving 3 times the amount of pages per session, and the average session duration is much longer. That would be expected because they're reading 3, almost 4 times as many pages. So while Facebook drives the majority of my sessions, LinkedIn traffic seems to stay longer and they seem to read more. Well, what can I do with that? Well, here's some ways that you could do that. Remember that page that we had that was already a high traffic page? That might be a really good one to promote on LinkedIn because it's already getting multiple people that are reading it from LinkedIn are reading 3 to almost 4 times as many pages as the people that are coming from Facebook. So some things that you could possibly do here where I really like to mingle some of these opportunities is I could take a Facebook ad directly to my new page. So the ad would literally go directly to that new page that I'm trying to get indexed. That's one way I could do this. The next way is I could run a Facebook ad or even like a boosted post, which I'm normally not crazy about. But in this case, all we're trying to do is drive traffic, not conversions. We're just trying to drive traffic to get this page indexed. So I might run a boosted post or a Facebook ad to the GMB post that we did earlier that was talking about the new page. So I've got a I've got a GMB post that's got the call to action of learn more. It points them to the new page that I'm trying to get indexed. I could run Facebook ads to that GMB post as well. I could run the LinkedIn ads to my updated high traffic page. So the page that we looked at, how to tell if a GMB listing is already claimed, I could run LinkedIn ads to that page because I've updated it to include an internal link to the new page that I'm trying to get indexed as well. Or I could do a boosted post to the GMB post with the interlinking strategy. So what does that look like? This is where it starts to get to where you're really intermingling all of these tactics. I could do a GMB post that links to my Google Slides. My Google Slides presentation links to the new page. So it gives me the opportunity to really use a combination of these tactics. We talked about how we could use a GMB post that's linking to like a Google Doc, and in that Google Doc it's linking to the new page that we're trying to get indexed. You could do something like that with your GMB post. You could run Facebook ads to that GMB post. So you've got a lot of sources of traffic coming through from not just people on Google reading the GMB post, but now you've got social media people that are going to that GMB post. So the more traffic that GMB post is getting, the more traffic down the flow of that traffic will be to that new page that we're trying to get indexed. As an example, this would be like if I was really, really having a hard time getting a page indexed. This is extremely rare, but these I actually use regularly. So as an example, what you might do is, let's say that I wanted to spend $150. I might run 100 of it with the Facebook ads to the new page that I'm trying to get indexed, okay? And then I might run 25 of it to the GMB post about the new page. And so that GMB post that has a direct link to the new page, I might run $25 of my $150 budget to that. And then I might run the remainder of the $25 of that budget to the updated high traffic page on LinkedIn. It's not really a waste of money because worst case scenario, if nobody clicks through, I'm still driving additional views to my high traffic page. So it's not really a waste of money in my mind. You're just driving traffic to your site. So a combination of those, if I wanted to spend $150, I could run $100 here, $25 here, and $25 here. If you're combining all these strategies together, that page is going to get indexed. It's just extremely rare that it would not. So I hope you're starting to see how you can really tie a lot of these strategies together and really set it over the top to get that page indexed. This next strategy to get pages indexed is the most advanced that we have, and it's the most aggressive. Well, we're going to take a look at how we're going to do 301 and 307 redirects. Now, this is not a tutorial on what the differences are between 301, 302, 307, etc. I will leave a link to the Wikipedia that tells you what they are. Understand that 301 means moved permanently, 307 means moved temporarily. That's the main thing that we're going to get into in this video, but I'll leave a link to this so you can go research more of it. But here's what we're going to do. Let's say that we've got an article that for whatever reason we just cannot get it indexed. This is the most aggressive way that we can go about doing that, and it does work. What we're going to do is we're going to take an existing page that is indexed, and we're going to make it a sacrificial lamb. If you've got a page, a lot of times people for SEO efforts will go back to old articles or old posts and they will update them, which is a great way of increasing your rank for those results, because it's an aged article or an aged post, whatever it is that you're using for your site setup. We're going to do something slightly different. If we have an old page that we're willing to sacrifice, at least temporarily, possibly permanently, that we can utilize to get a new page indexed, if the value of the new page is greater than the old poster page, then we might make it the sacrificial lamb, so to speak. So here's the way that would work. Let's say that I had a lot of links that were going to this page. I can actually go set up a redirect. It would look like this. And I can set it up in WordPress. It's different. You set up your redirects usually in your SEO plugins, but basically I can set up a redirect where I can say I want whatever the page is here to redirect to whatever I want. And you can set it to be permanent or temporary. Permanent being 301, temporary being 307. So let's take a look at what that might look like. I've got how to tell if a GMB listing is claimed, which is this. And I want it to link to this new page. So I would just say it's temporary, it's published. Now, if somebody were to go to this link, see how it automatically forwarded them over to how to get a web page indexed by Google? That's the new link. So we are literally using the traffic of the backlink that's going to our old post, and we're bumping it over to our new page. You can already see where that's going to help with your traffic, right? So I'm going to go ahead and unpublish this since I don't actually want that to be happening. However, how do we know which post might be a good one to use for this, whether it's going to be a temporary or a permanent sacrificial lamb? Well, the way you do that is in Google Search Console. When you log into Search Console and you scroll over to the left hand under Legacy Tools and Reports, you're going to click on Links, and it's going to give you a lot of information about sites that are external sites that are linking back to you. It's your backlinks report. And it's going to show you the site in this column over here. And then it's going to show you how many pages are linking to it, the different target pages. So when you click on one of those, it will dive in to, for instance, like the Contact Us page. I'm just going to use this as an example. If I click on that as the top target page, or in the example we were using, it would be the how to tell if a GMB is already claimed. Once we click on that, it will show us in detail where those links are coming from. So, for instance, if I were to click on that, I can actually go see the page and see exactly where that backlink is on the page. But this is a great way for you to see who's backlinking to you, right? And so what I might do is I might go find a page, a post that has a lot of backlinks. And if it has a lot of backlinks and I'm willing to sacrifice it, at least temporarily, then I can put my 301 or 307 redirect in place to basically pass the traffic from one all the way over to the other. And by the way, 301 redirects do pass link equity. That's outside the scope of this conversation, but it does work. They do pass link equity. So if I were to take this one and I were to pass it over to the new article, all of the backlinks that are currently linking to this article are essentially linking to the new page. It will definitely help you get that page indexed in Google.